Hello, Internet. I'm your humble host, LSL, and welcome to the Monday Morning 4D QB show. How do I follow up my incredible interview with Bosco quarterback Matt Sims? Me and my dad were thinking, how do we possibly follow this up? And we both look at each other and simultaneously say the same word, Vito. Right. And if you don't recognize my guest by his first name, or just looking at his face on the big screens for one or two reasons. You're either a Bosco fan and subconsciously erased his image from your memory, or you're just not from New Jersey. Because it has been Coach Vito's and his Jedi Warrior coaching staff's brilliance that has led the Bergen Catholics 2021 team, which is arguably the greatest team in New Jersey history, as we, the players, say first team ever as we go undefeated 12-0 in the Super Red Football Conference and won the state championship against Bosco at MetLife. And then pulled off the double barrel Bosco blitz with a complete throttling against them in 2022 state championship. And if you think throttling is an arrogant way to describe it, that's probably one of the nicest ways it's been described. So without further ado, I'm thrilled beyond belief and more than you will in a moment, to introduce my guest, the only coach in all of New Jersey that you know who it is just by his first name, like saying LeBron when you're talking about basketball. Ladies and gentlemen, I'm talking about Vito, my coach, Vito Campanile.
Thanks for having me, Logan. I appreciate it, buddy.
Thank you so much.
Good to be. You're on the other side of the aisle now, man.
Yeah, I know. It's weird. It's a little weird, but
yeah, other side of the desk, huh?
Getting used to it. Getting used to it.
Yeah.
Before we take a deep dive into this interview, because it's not going to be one of your cookie cutter interviews like I mentioned before we started this that I know you hate. I learned a little bit at Princeton and have done a lot of research. So before I get started, I have a quick story to tell you. Not that you need any bulletin board material for Bosco next year. I interviewed Matt Sims a couple weeks ago. Had with him, and who I believe is your friend, and you've been interviewed by him
absolutely
times on his podcast with the great Mike Wick. And I'm lucky enough to call Matt Sims a friend now. And the reason why me and Matt know each other is we give our lessons at the same field in Franklin Lakes. And so he's given his lessons, and Lil Woodsy is there. And I'm in the middle of one of my lessons, and Matt screams at the top of his lungs, "Come on, do it for Bergen Catholic," and he gives a little remark about how Bergen Catholic's education isn't up to par with Bosco's. And, I'm busy with my student. So my dad goes, "Yeah, well, at Bergen, they tell us to count backwards from 45 to 0.
Oh, geez.
And
I'm thinking Sims, you didn't like that one.
I don't know. I hope he heard it. He was locked in, but it was funny. Don't want to talk Bergen Bosco right now. Maybe later with questions I think you've been asked before.
Sure.
And I have to. If you can indulge me, then I will be quiet and let you talk for the rest of the show. For the last 3 shows, I've had to take off my so-called Bergen hat and be a fair-minded, unbiased journalist, and it's been hard at times, almost suffocating. So with Sims. So with that being said, we're all
right,
and we're
man. We could have doubled down. I have that same shirt, brother.
We're ready to go. We're all
right
now. All right. So now to get it started again, no cookie cutter. All right. I want to take you back to 1992. All right, and talk about what was called at the time the game of the century. Now, my listeners might be wondering what a game 30 years ago has to do with you, but if you didn't know, Coach Vito wasn't always Coach Vito. He was big man on campus at PC, Paramus Catholic, starting quarterback who wound up finishing a high school career and then state record, 6,702 yards, 55 touchdowns, 55. Wow. Well, at least we know where you get your disdain for field goals comes from.
Yeah, that's an inside one. I don't know if you might have to go in detail later on that one.
And in 1992, a young gunslinger named Vito Campanile would lead his team onto the field for the state championship with his coach, who was his father, Coach Campy. Coach Campy, sound familiar? Playing under a father, and in our league, and it was against Bergen Catholic. Okay, Coach. So don't want to talk about the game itself. I want to know three things: what that week's practice was like under Coach Campy, what was the pressure like back then in 1992, and as a quarterback compared to what players deal with now in 2023, and most importantly, what was Coach Campy's pregame speech like? And then there's a reason why I'm asking about the speech. So please don't hold back on the speech. This is the internet. Let everything go.
Yeah, no, those are three great questions. So to break it down, honestly, the practice week was a little different for me, and it's actually funny that you asked some of those questions, because I think I've learned a lot from that experience as a coach as opposed to being a player, because I did some things different that week in practice. Like I didn't speak to the media during the week, and there was a whirlwind of media around that game. And Coach Campy's famous quote, "They're not the University of Bergen Catholic. They're just a high school football team." And his line that we were going to kick their ass made it into the Bergen record, and that was not. I was pretty frowned upon around these parts back then. So I would say at that point, Campy was probably public enemy number one on Orodale Ave, right? So it was a different time. There was certainly no love lost the week leading up. Practice was pretty physical. I'll never forget, we usually, Fridays, we usually have a walkthrough. It snowed a ton. It snowed over 8 inches. The game was supposed to be played at Bergen, and there was no turf here at the time, Logan. So the game actually had to be moved to Union High School, where Coach Stangel's best friend, Lou Rutino, legendary Lou Rutino, was the head coach, and they had a great stadium down there. So unbelievable crowd, unbelievable atmosphere to play a high school game. And it was, 1 in a million football game, that's for sure. Loved everything except the ending, right? So, but it was a heck of a football game, and it's really stood the test of time as far as the reputation and the game really leading up, the hype leading up to the game really met the match.
Awesome. Do you get you mentioned how physical the practices were that week? Do you get that physical practice ideology from your father? Because it's been a little controversial in high school as physical Bergen practice. I think that's why we're the best at killing.
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I know it's a little different and unique to today's football. You could obviously speak to that probably better than most athletes can, being part of it for 4 years, right? But yeah, the physicality, I think that we always want to make it so that when you go in the game, it's not foreign, right? The competition, the physicality is not foreign. And then obviously something that I think we want to take distinct advantage of here is when we practice good on good, right? You know that a lot. Like there's a lot of so, if you're practicing against DJ Samuels, or you're practicing against a high level receiver like Quincy Porter is today, or Tino Correa was when you played. Yeah. So you're playing against high level guys every day. I think you just get better, right? So the opportunity of playing against high level competition is really going to help you when it comes to game day. So we want game day to be easier than practice, not harder.
And I can even attest to that as a long snapper, because now
Sure.
I think we're I think in our conference, the only team that has a pro style blocking scheme on punt. And when I'm going up against DJ in practice,
Right, and live bullets coming at you how many times a week? Yeah.
And then I go up against whatever team we're playing. It's like, all right, it's great. I love it. I love it. Right. And I think that's why we play the way
I think it's more you become accustomed to it, and it's really what you know, right? Yeah.
Right. So yeah, as you mentioned, you didn't like the result of that game. I believe it was 44-33 or something like that.
Yeah, 44-34, right? Yep. Yeah.
34. If you can talk about some of the critical plays of that game, some of the players on each team, if anybody would know them to this day, any high profile players, and any funny stories from that game that nobody would know. For example, that Matt Sims shared on our last interview, where he said that nuns pulled him aside on the state championship game and joked to him that, "Are you ready? I'm putting you in the second half." And I
I saw that on your podcast.
Are there any funny stories or anything along those lines?
Honestly, that game was pretty ruthless. There wasn't a whole lot of funny going on, but it was such a whirlwind seesaw game. I mean, we went ahead 34-29. We ran a wheel route up the sidelines, caught them in like a backside cover one type deal, and we scored like a 45-yard touchdown. But we really, we had my thing that I'll never get over. I threw a pick in the second quarter. We were going in. That was a big play in the game. I thought we could have taken control of the game, and I don't know if I'll ever get over that one. And then, there were some big plays within the game, and Mark played an amazing game, Mark DeRosa. But they actually were going back down to put us down by 2 touchdowns. And Mark threw a pass that ended up being a pick six. Bart Merlino ran all the way back. That was an epic play in the game. Then I think the biggest play of the game is obviously our head freshman coach and strength coach, Dave Cavalluzzo, made a catch on 3rd and 9 where Coach Nuns was actually bearing down at him as a strong safety, and the ball was kind of thrown behind him. But Cav made a tremendous spin and catch. And if you would have thrown it out in front, Nuns probably would have blown him up. And Dave made an awesome catch, and they completed that drive to basically win the game. That was a big drive in the game, but they did a great job. Coach Stengel, they were an old wing T team, and they did a good job with the belly series and buck sweep, but mainly the belly series in the second half. And I think Mark threw it like 12 or 13 times, but every time he threw it, there were guys flying wide open because they did such a good job running the ball. They were a big physical outfit. And we were really an up-and-coming program. 2 years before Campy had gotten there had not been a winning team at Paramus Catholic in almost 2 decades, and to get to the state championship in only his 3rd season there, and to play a school like Bergen Catholic, it was remarkable what he was able to accomplish with that team. And it's something I'll never forget. Like I've told you guys countless times about, take this all in. And these are some of the greatest bonds and memories that you're going to have in your life. Looking back at it now, over 30 years later, I feel the same way about my experience in high school. And to be honest with you, Logan, a lot of the reason that I do what I do for a living and why I'm a coach is because of the guys that coached me on that team. So many of those guys have had such a profound effect on me as a person. Not just as an athlete. I mean, like in my hardest times in my life, I still to this day have been able to turn to a lot of the assistant coaches and a head coach of that team to help me through any adversity that I've faced as a person way beyond the football field and years after I never played for them. So like I say to you guys all the time, I think that this game, first and foremost, is about relationships. The thing I take the most pride in our team, and you guys were an elite level football team, but the relationships that we've been able to develop and cultivate and keep right while you move on and after you've left Bergen Catholic, I think is the thing that I take the most pride in, especially in the group of guys that you played with.
Yeah, that's special. That's special.
Yeah.
Thank you for sharing that. And a couple minutes ago, your memory is very impressive, almost Sean McVay like from a 30 years ago like that.
I don't know Coach McVay, but I'll take it.
Yeah, I mean, as I said earlier, and how you were just discussing, how much your coaches have helped you face adversity in your life. That was, at least in my memory, a big theme in your speeches, and that's why I said we were going to come back to this. The same way your father has been a big influence in your life and your coaches. He was so is mine, obviously, and
Sure.
he's very involved in my sports career, providing everything I need to succeed. Going to Bergen Catholic, obviously my mother, of course. But from a dad's point of view, he's a huge fan of yours, except for the times that you didn't kick it. And I'm sure that you may have heard him a couple.
Old Dave let me know too. He'd let me know.
Yeah, I'm sure you heard him a couple times from the stands. And not just because of me, his best friend. We call him Big Carb. And that's each other every game. They're like, what?
Yeah.
Anyway. Anyway, my father has told me a lot about football history, and one nickname that he had for you was the speech maker. Told me to throw this in there.
Okay.
To share that to you. And he would tell all that would listen that your pregame speeches were just as, if not more, legendary than the great Newt Rockneys.
Well, I'll take it. I appreciate it. I don't know if
in
that's
particular,
factual, but I'll take it.
well, that's what he thinks. That's what he says, and he really believes it. And I do too, from what I witnessed. And this speech that I want to talk to you about in particular, and we'll try to cut it in here, is the speech, if you can remember, before the St. Joe's game, COVID year 2021.
This is like a 6-year quest for me in my life to build the best program in the state of New Jersey. Get your eyes up here, okay? And focus in on what we're doing. Focus in on what we are. Our lives have intersected for a reason, okay? Every guy here, I can tell you for some reason, we came across each other, okay? How blessed we are to be together right now. The sacrifices we've made. The sacrifices we made, right, David? The sacrifices your families have made for you to be in this huddle right now, okay? You owe it. You owe it to every one of those people to put forth everything you got in your soul today. No matter where you go in your life, you know that people right here love you, okay? Because when you got that, you got something that is so deep and so strong that you can't be beat. It is not supposed to be easy. Earn this from start to finish. Start to finish. Love you guys. Let's get it.
That's been everywhere, and it's received tens of thousands, if not more, views. And your speeches, I think, for me, even again as a long snapper, I think for all of us, I mean, you see all the pictures that get uploaded after the game of our guys crying in the locker room, and I think that's from your speeches, and I think that's what we think about during our games. And when I hear, I mean, me and my dad play it sometimes before big things in our lives, to be honest with you, because
that means a lot. I appreciate you saying that.
A powerful speech. And I remember I sent you that text a couple months ago.
Right. Yeah.
He, not going, tough at school, pouring rain, got to make it to the weight room, and my bike, torrential downpour. And I'm just thinking of your voice in the back of my head saying, are you serious? And I'm just thinking about, and I don't know if you've heard it, if it's gotten back to you, but I can do a really good impression of you.
I have heard it. Yeah, I have heard it.
And I'm just, oh, you think about the adversity that your parents have gone through, and you can't go to the freaking weight room. And I'm just playing that in my head over and over again. So my question is, did you learn to give speeches from your dad and or from how your life experience from your coaches, and learn the importance from listening to your dad? And what was something that you developed on your own to develop speeches like that?
Yeah, I think a lot of it, I think, well, first and foremost, talking to you guys, I think it's like the one time where you really get to pour out your emotion to you guys as a unit, where you get to let everybody know how you feel and appreciate and respect what we've done. I have watched my father give countless speeches, and I think that I would say he's 100% the person that I've tried to emulate a lot of that after, or kind of it's come from. But I like to think it's pretty natural. There's weeks where I'd write down some ideas, and there's weeks where it would just kind of fly right off the brim of my hat. Like I really, just kind of what we're thinking about. But I do think a lot of it is the relationship side of what we do. And like we talk about our commitment ratio here, this, like we document everything from the minutes you spend in a weight room, how much time we are at practice, how much time there is in study hall, community service, out of season events, everything that we do. That equals up to over 1,000 hours a year, Logue, right? So if you're going to spend over 1,000 hours a year together, you're going to come to love and respect those guys and really care about them as people. And pregame is kind of a time where you really get to let them know how you feel and appreciate what they've done and what we've been able to develop together as a extended family, right? I mean, I don't think there's anything that could ever replicate the people that you love and have in your family. But, second to that, like as your sports family, I think you want to kind of emulate the same thing that goes into a family. So And we really try hard to do that here, right? I mean, I think you know that. I mean, you could second what I'm saying. So really, that's a lot what the pregame is about. And then it's about like motivate and the fact that it's going to be us versus them, and really, like I've always said, be selfish about what we do, right? We don't want to be selfish, like self-indulge, but we want to be selfish for each other. And, we've worked as hard to earn what we're going after as anybody out there. So let's put it all out there together. Yeah.
Right. Special. It was very prophetic. And what you mentioned is that you had a 6-year quest to make this program special. And I think it took you 3. COVID year didn't count. And the next 2 years look really, really good. So that 6-year quest is very, I thought it was very interesting. And why 6? If you remember,
actually, yeah, I know exactly what I'm saying. If you go back to it, because when I left Westwood, it was really probably the hardest thing I ever did in coaching. Leave Westwood High School as a coach, and at the time, I really, I felt like it was a time to take like a huge challenge and go to Seton Hall Prep. I felt like, we're taking a step into the biggest league in the state, and the Prep was just coming into our league that we're in now. And, they've made monumental strides over the last few years, but I kind of like looked at it as once going into the super conference, like you were trying to compete against not only the best teams and the best and coaches, in the state in a lot of ways. Right. So there's a lot it's hard. It's really hard to win here. And if you look at it prior to your senior year, I think it had been since 2011 since the team had gone undefeated in the league. Right. So it's really, I mean, the challenge, the week in, week out, and the parity within these schools is amazing. So it's just really the opportunity to compete at the highest level and really to attain and accomplish the highest goals you can. And really, I think for most people in sports, that's really what you want to do. You want to challenge yourself to be the best version of you all the time. And I think that no different than why the players have come to Bergen Catholic. The same reason I did. Yeah.
And I just thought it was really interesting because most people say 5, 3, 10 years, but you chose 6 years. So I was wondering if there was anything behind that 6.
Well, I just felt like, it had been about that long since I had left Westwood at that point, and I had felt like we were about to take that step to become, and we really did. Right. Yeah. But you, as a coach, you kind of have you should have a really good pulse of your program and your team and the character of the kids. And I really felt like right about at that point, we were about there, and we really were. I mean, I had an incredible amount of trust and respect for you guys in what you're, and the resolve that we had in that locker room was different. I kind of knew, I know that wasn't a locker room, that was in an outdoor speech, but I kind of knew where we were heading with that team. And it's kind of been the evolution of what we've developed and cultivated over the last 3 years. Yeah.
Thank you. And just going back to that speech real quick, curious, when you gave that speech, did you know in the moment that, or right afterwards, that it was special, or did it just go right away?
Honestly, bud, I was pissed off it got out. I didn't know that it was filmed. Yeah, I had no idea. And I have a little bit of an issue with that. Like because the way I am with the locker room. I want our guys in the locker room, right? I don't want anybody outside of our program to have, and I worry, like, because sometimes you lose your mind. You don't know exactly what you say, right? So I try and keep it together, but I was worried that one got out, and then it kind of, I guess it went positive, a lot of, because I had called a couple of people in our alums and said, and they're like, no, it's a good thing. I'm like, but I was worried. I was a little bit concerned the first day when it went out. Yeah.
Maybe they'll bar it.
At least you guys won the game. Damn it.
Yeah.
It could have went way the other way.
Yep. So moving on.
Yeah.
After the historic 2021 championship season, you won the USA Today Coach of the Year, which is unbelievably special. And knowing that I was under that coach is just, you don't really know what to feel. And it was so special. And again, my dad sticks his head into the conversation and argues that your best coaching job to date was my freshman year coming in first year at Bergen Catholic, even though we lost in the state championship, because you arguably lost the best offensive player and defensive player in the state of New Jersey, with Josh McKenzie and Aeneas DeCosmo.
Yeah.
And the adjustments that had to be made, again, not really knowing the team to its entirety, like not completely knowing all the guys. And a guy like Josh and a guy like Aeneas go down. And Josh gets hurt against, I think, Red Bank, and then Aeneas goes down a couple games into the season, and nobody's fault. I mean, it happens. But what was that like? Not on a coaching level, but on a person or a dad level, seeing, if you just zoom out, seeing the devastation of an 18-year-old kid.
So it's the worst part. It's the worst part of coaching. I mean, the night Josh got hurt, he was such a freak athlete that he actually walked off the field. He was jogging, doing squats. He actually did 2 kettlebell squats on his torn ACL leg when we got back to Bergen Catholic. So we're like, he's, sprained knee, he's going to be out. He'll play against Grayson next week. That's what we thought, right? And then, I remember Doc Ray Longobardi calling me the next night, and after he had read his MRI, and we were actually outside Jed DeNoble's house when I told him, and it was one of the more emotional things I've ever been involved in sports. And it was, I don't know that you could ever, for as much joy and exhilaration as there is in winning, it was probably that low of a feeling for him, because I really felt like he was playing the best football in the state. I felt like, it's one of those things that you'll never be able to explain or understand. I mean, there's worse things that happen in life, right? And to come through that, but it just felt so wrong that happened to that guy at that point in time. It was because he was playing at a level of football that was very, very uncommon.
Yeah.
And I felt like it really was something that was hard to get. So it wasn't really so much about our team. It was way more about making sure that he was okay as a person. And I got to give so much credit to Nuns, who, was such an integral part of Josh's career here, and doing so much to help him through that after he'd left Bergen. That was pretty special watching that too,
And I remember me and Josh have one thing in common. The reason why I came here, and we'll get into this later, the reason why I came to Bergen was because of Nuns, and the reason why I stayed was because of you. And I remember that Josh said something very similar to us. I don't know if you know, but he said, when the coaching job, when Nuns left, he was going to transfer, but he stayed because of you. Yeah. And I just think that's it's so special. And I really wanted to share that. And obviously I'm assuming you knew, but just to put that out, and just even saying it makes you feel good. And so and I remember, and I'm not going to share it because it's so personal, Josh's speech to us before
unbelievable.
Grayson. I couldn't really walk back to the sideline after that. And and again, I think that's just a reflection of you. And how do you, when something like that happens, how do you console a kid like that? And how do you just completely flip the switch? Because you have a job to do.
It's almost impossible, like, to say the right thing, right? I mean, and there's never a right thing to say. And unfortunately, I've been through it multiple times in college. 5 surgeries in my college career. But I think the main thing is to understand, like, that and I say this all the time when things that, the negative never defines you. It's the response and how you respond to it. And, going to college, getting a diploma from Yale last week, and everything that Josh has kind of embraced, and what he'll be as a person, and what Bergen Catholic means to him, and what he's meant to our school. I think, he's just a great example of that, right? And Aeneas, no different. I mean, Aeneas was well on his way to being Defensive Player of the Year that year, broke his ankle against Don Bosco on the second play of the game. We ran a tight end counter, like shovel pass to him, and he just kind of got caught in a pile. That was incredible. and, obviously went on to an unbelievable career at Stanford and now doing a grad transfer year at Vanderbilt. And again, what he'll do in his life and outside of football and as a person is elite.
Yeah.
So,
Right.
but those guys were special guys. And obviously really the foundation to a lot of what you guys were able to develop into as players. I think that that's a huge part of our program, is like taking witness to what works. There's a lot of validation to the process that's in place here. And I think that makes it easier as a coach, but it also, the development of players and having somebody to really point the finger at and say, hey, like, carry yourself like this guy does and do things the right way and have the effort and attitude that it takes to be successful in every aspect of your life. I think really it resonates with a lot of you guys. And I think it's I'm seeing it pay forward now with my own son, being able to grow up around you guys and watch you guys as a young player, and now coming into his own as a player here. It's really one of the things I'm most proud of as a parent, not even as a coach. Right. So, and the way that it is paid forward here and the tradition that is in place.
Thank you. You just answered my entire next question of how biggest lessons you've learned as a coach. Obviously, that those two situations probably have taught you and showed you everything. Is there anything else you'd like to add?
Yeah, I think like the whole coach of the year thing. I don't know. Like, I don't feel like, you're a better coach because you went 12-0. I never felt that way. I mean, like, I look around, like I always think of DJ Nymphius as a guy I coached against at Riverdale High School. I mean, he kicked my ass up and down the field when I was at Westwood. I mean, I really, and I think back to when I was a young coach and coaching against Bob Valley at Cresskill, or I watched like Brian Dunn at Old Tapan, like how the success he's had, like the whole national coachity. I don't know about all that stuff. I really don't. I don't know what makes me better than. I don't really feel that way. I think what I do think is the kids that I coached have earned that. Not the, really, it's not the head coach. I mean, I personally feel like one of the best coaching jobs we did was my second year at Seton Hall Prep. We lost to Don Bosco 14-13 in the playoffs. We were 2-18, right? And we had lost our quarterback on the 5th play of the year. And, we came roaring back, lost to Bergen in a real tight game, and then played Bosco in the first round of the playoffs. And I mean, had a pretty tough call at the end of the game where I thought we were going to win the game, right? So I don't know about the whole national coach of the year thing. That might be a little overblown, but I think that the kids that I was able to coach on that 21 team, that's a program thing. That's definitely not a coach thing.
Understood. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you.